I think most people don't wake up in the morning knowing exactly what they want to watch today or read today. And that's why discovery, and I totally agree with my previous panelist here, that discovery, I think, is huge. In general, you know, who to date, what to eat, and what content to consume. And Taboola is set out to solve what content to consume. So we work with publishers such as Time.com, David Spain, USA Today, and Gannett, and a bunch of great publishers to help them retain users that come to their site by presenting personalized recommendations, and also help them monetize their content by surfacing third-party publisher content and agency content that people may want to watch or read. So that's what we do.
If I'm a publisher, as in fact I am, why do I want other publishers' content on my site?
That's a phenomenal question. So first, I think people will leave your site in any case at one point, whether you want it or not. So you know, everybody has their average time spent on site. So you can decide to not share other content on your site, or you can decide to do so. I think the Huffington Post were probably the first publisher that really invented the concept of becoming a hub. You know, they decided that people that come to the Huffington Post will come again because they know that when they come here, there's the best content available, whether it's on the Huffington Post or from other sites. And we want to replicate the similar concept. So I'm providing you as a publisher, which you should be doing, to use our tools to decide what type of content you may accept on your site and what content you will reject on your site. We're able to scout for the best awesome content around the web in a marketplace that we operate and surface that content on your site.
And how is the content displayed? Does it simply send readers to the other publisher's site, or is it presented inside some kind of a frame?
It's usually at the bottom of an article page, you'll see something like content from around the web. If you click on any one of those links, a new tab would open up, similar to how you would do if you had written an article and shared something to The Economist that you think is good content. So in a similar fashion, the bottom of the article page or at the end of the video will say more from around the web you may like. If you click on any one of those links, a new tab would open up, and then we charge for that click. So publishers and agencies bid to be surfaced on MIT if you were to use a Taboola technology on your site. And then some of those publishers and brands would appear to your users. Every time a user decides to leave, we get paid. We share some of that back with you.
You're an intermediary.
Yes, I am.
You see, that's where the real money is in this. So okay, you've convinced me, I guess, that it's not disastrous for me to go and have other publishers on my site. The benefit to me is what? What do I get from putting my content on other people's sites?
I think good user experience for users because you become a hub over time. 2, revenue. I think display, as you said, is a challenging future revenue model. Yeah. I think text ads, I think there's so much you can present, clean my teeth text ad to users on your site to subsidize and run your business. So what we found was that we can generate significantly high CPMs for publishers by showing content. So if you think about the future of publishers and how they want to grow their business in an era where display is declining, I think we offer publishers a new way to monetize their site.
I'm sure you've thought of this. Are there opportunities for other kinds of brands other than publishers to go and show their content in this fashion through Taboola?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just did a case study which will be launched soon with Vans. Vans sells shoes. And historically, a brand, the way they would go about driving sales was to present an image of what they want to sell, right? You drive in Times Square, you see a big signage of something you may want to buy, and there's a hope behind that you'll end up buying that product. 2013, there's a new way to do so. Instead of showing your product with the hope someone would actually click to buy that, why not interview someone running with your shoe and ask them, how do you like the shoe? And they may say, it's an awesome shoe, I like it. And if you're able to build a community around that story, some of those people in that community will end up buying your product. So what we're doing with brands is instead of them pushing display and images of their products and hope for the best, we're telling them just tell your story, write articles, produce videos, and we'll find those people that actually care about your product, and some of them will buy. So we're able to drive sales or build communities in a new way. And those brands, what they tell us is that when they compare 1,000 people, I just shared it with here before, for a brand, they compared 1,000 people reading a video about someone talking about their shoe coming from the Taboola network versus 1,000 people coming from other ways of source traffic, and they noticed that our users tweet 4 times more.
Huh.
And why, the only reason people care to tweet or care to comment is if they care. And I think that's what we find. We find that if you can drive engaged audience to a story, people care to do something about it.
That is a really interesting form of brand promotion. I guess I have one last question. What has Taboola taught you about what's most important to users? Is it the quality of the content? Is it the community? Is it the network effect? What do users most value?
You want the provocative answer? Or
yeah, no, provocative is good.
Because that's the only one I have.
Provocative is the good one.
I actually, Dan and I from Reuters, we did a segment, you can check it out, which called, we had breakfast and I asked him, is content king? And he said, well, of course. Yeah. And I told him, well, what happens if you produce the most amazing content which cost you $1 million to produce, but then no one ended up watching it? Yeah. So isn't it like a king without a kingdom? Yeah. And he said, you know what, hold that thought, meet me next week, come to my studio, which we did. So then we did a follow-up on that. So my answer would be a question is that I don't know what's more important, content or distribution, but I do know that, do you think Gangnam Style is a good content?
I actually do in a weird way. It is the strangest thing I've ever seen. I can't believe it costs very much to go and do, but it actually is kind of glorious in a way. It's gloriously weird, right?
And does the fact that it has 2 billion views convinced you in some way?
Well, if I'd seen it and I hadn't known that 1 billion people or 2 billion had seen it, I would still have loved it. But I'll give you the alternative case. Many of you might have seen the New York Times' amazing interactive Snowfall. So that is an extraordinary piece of content. It was built by around 100 interactive developers. The sunk costs of doing that were, I'm sure, absolutely enormous. I can't believe it actually did them very much good in terms of actual traffic, though. So I absolutely take your point. You can make glorious content, but if there isn't very much traffic behind it or the right distribution, it's kind of pointless, right? Yeah,
and you know what? I have to be honest. I don't think we live in a period where people bookmark a good brand publisher as their homepage anymore. Yeah. I don't think that's the future. I think people just they stumble upon stuff, and I think publishers have to acknowledge the fact that even though they may produce terrific content, they also have to participate in a marketplace where people have an opportunity to even know they exist.
Well, now you're to press me. So is there any benefit to a publisher's brand at all as people discover? Do they say, oh yeah, I know I like MIT Technology Review, I know I like The Economist?
I think the question is, are you a short-term publisher or a long-term publisher? If you think about who you want to be in 2 or 3 years, then
I'm a long-term publisher.
So I think brand matters, but in a very in a way that you'll build an audience over time and not make a lot of money short-term. So I think if you're able to make your content available out there, and people can discover that over time, they'll acknowledge the quality of your content.